Welcome to the Parenting with Grace and Grit podcast, where every week we discuss behavior and the top 3 strategies we, as behavior analysts, suggest to work on it.
Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about managing holiday schedules. Everyone knows that the end of the year is packed with classroom activities, holiday parties, festivities, visiting family, traveling, the list goes on. So this can be a very stressful time of year for many families, and we are going to talk about some strategies that you can use this holiday season.
Excellent. So our first strategy is just to prepare your child each week, whether they are finishing up in school or on holiday break. You can use this strategy to kind of get you through every day. We highly recommend using visual schedules. We even have a weekly visual schedule that is available and customizable on our website. So if it sounds stressful for you to make with everything else going on, just let us do it for you. However, you can easily make this at home. What you'll do is list out the days of the week, and then for that week, put each activity that's going to happen on the day it's going to happen. We like to make it very personalized so that it's more engaging. So for instance, if your child has their sister's basketball practice on Monday and then a party in their class on Tuesday, and they have to go to grandma's house on Thursday, and then they have a party on Saturday, then you would add specific pictures to those days. So there's going to be a picture of grandma, there's going to be a picture of their school, maybe a Christmas tree on Saturday to signify the Christmas party, and then a picture of their sister and a basketball on Monday so that they know they're going to that practice. It'll also include a picture of their face that's going to sit above each day, and then you'll move it along throughout the week so that they know what day they're on. When you're making it, review it with them and go over it each day. This might not seem revolutionary, but research shows that it can be really effective in preventing tantrums and other behaviors because it just lets your child know what's going to be happening. Kids are so out of the know all the time. They're just tagging along for everything. So this really helps them kind of have some sort of idea of what's going to happen. If your child's smaller and maybe they can't really grasp a whole week at a time, you can do daily schedules with them. And it helps to incorporate them in this process, and it helps to intersperse activities that they enjoy. So using the example above, Monday would look like this. There's going to be a picture of a snack, a picture of a car showing they're going to practice, a picture of an activity they might do while they're at their sister's practice, another picture of the car, picture of dinner, maybe another picture of a preferred activity, and then maybe a picture of their bed. We also have free visual schedules you can download on our website, and we are happy to help you make them if that's too much. Keep in mind, though, that in a pinch, you can just write it, draw it, whatever, as simple as you need, because this is supposed to be helpful, not stressful. The point is to make it functional, not perfect. Just make sure you review it with your child, discuss it with them every day so they know it's coming, and then talk about it as you go through your day as much as you can.
I want to add for a smaller child, if you're using kind of an afternoon schedule with the several pictures, you might want to bring that with you because you can continuously show it to them. So, if you're picking them up from school and they get the snack, you can hand it to them, be like, review it then, and then you can review it in the car. You might even need to review it at practice because they might be asking, when are we leaving? What's next? What are we doing? And that way you have it with them and you can show it to them and review it to them, and that can really help. It might be a lot at first, but the more you continue to use it and get them used to a schedule, the easier your afternoons will become. Okay. Strategy 2 is using rewards during crazy weeks. It can be so hard on everyone when siblings have to attend their own sports, sibling sports, and holiday events. One thing that you can do for those hard weeks is to use a token economy. And we've talked about these before, but we'll discuss how you can specifically use it for those stressful weeks. No matter what behavior you're trying to avoid, tantrums, whining, complaining, talking back, this can be a great strategy to use. You're going to first determine what it is you want to happen. For example, Lacey will have a good attitude and finish her homework. Then determine a time frame that you know is attainable for your child. Ideally, every parent wants their child to complete their homework and have a good attitude every day, but sometimes that's just not the case, especially with teenagers and especially during the holiday season. So think about what they are capable of doing right now and then think of slightly under that. And this is so important because we want them to succeed so that we can continue to build upon it. If your child does not have a good attitude for more than 30 minutes, then this is not going to be a good strategy for you at the moment. And that's okay. But if your child does have a pretty good attitude, 4 out of 5 weekdays, it might be best to start with 3 weekdays. Then you will explain to your child, Lacey, if you have a good attitude and finish your homework 3 out of 5 days this week, you can earn blank. And this can be a great tool to use on those busy weeks when everyone's energy is wearing thin and you just need to make it through. This is just an example, and you can tweak it to fit your child. Just remember that we want to make it attainable for them. So you could also say something like, Lacey will have a good attitude and finish her homework within 2 hours, 3 out of 5 days this week. The important thing to remember is that we don't want to put too many stipulations, especially if this is your first week doing it or they're just getting used to it. It's okay to just start with, Lacey will have a good attitude for 3 out of 5 days, especially with teenagers. You're going to want to set those clear expectations on what a good attitude is, and you can define it for them and write it on the top, put it on the fridge or somewhere where they can see it so that everyone's held accountable. And then another way to make sure that this is successful is to have your child included in this process, especially when it comes to picking the reward. So if you say that they can earn Starbucks, but they have Starbucks all the time, and they have a hard time having a good attitude, you may need to increase the reward some. And be really firm on this. If they do not follow the expectation, they do not get the reward. If you give in and give them the reward anyways, the likelihood that a token economy will work in the future is really slim. So just keep in mind that this is completely customizable to your family. You can do it for any type of behavior, and it can work.
It can, yeah. These are really great. I know it's confusing because it's called a token economy, but really it just means that there's a certain criteria they have to meet to get a reward. And I think it's really important to make sure that whatever they have to do is attainable. So we want to figure out what it is that they're able to do so they can have, maybe they can keep themselves together for 3 days out of 5 days. Maybe we're going to set it to 2 days because that's going to help them be successful and understand what this process actually even is. If they're never reaching the reward at the end because it's set too high, it's not going to work. So we really need to take it down, and then you can slowly increase it. It's not like it's always going to be only 2 days, but once they're used to that, you can build up to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. And then another thing to really reiterate is that you have to define what a good attitude is or whatever it is. So it doesn't become this battle of, well, I think I had a good attitude, but my mom says I didn't. And then, it's just a he said, she said kind of thing. So when you're doing that and talking about it with them, give them examples of what a good attitude is and what a not so good attitude is. And if they say something, kind of snarky, however many times, maybe that's going to mean that's a bad attitude and that's, a 0 on that day. But it's really important to talk about it with them ahead of time. And then when it happens, talk about it, call them out like, hey, that was a bad attitude or that was not a good attitude. That's an example of what I don't want you to do or whatever it is, so that they're kind of learning. Because if you just say, hey, have a good attitude, they might not actually even know what that means if they are that angsty teenager all the time.
Yeah, and I would say too, another really key takeaway here is that you have to make it attainable in the sense of how many days you're going off of, kind of how we talked about before. But don't start with 2 weeks. We would say, it's going to depend. You might have to start with 3 days, depending on what behavior it is you're specifically trying to focus on. And then once they can do that, I would say for 2 weeks at least, then you could talk about bumping it up, and changing your expectation a little bit to, maybe from 3 to 4 days. But you don't want to change it too fast and you don't want to make it too long. And like Lauren said, it's really important to have them included, because what this is supposed to do is kind of become very objective so that they can see it's not my mom saying, you know, you never have a good attitude or whatever. There is a clear expectation, and it's very objective. It's both of you guys have agreed to it, and you can put it, on the fridge where everyone can see it. And there's really no arguing about what is, a good attitude versus not a good attitude because it's clearly written out and you guys have agreed to it. So that's where, there's a lot of components to a token economy, but if you can figure out how to make it work for your family, it really can make a big difference, especially during these crazy holiday weeks when it's hard on everyone to get through. And that can maybe give your teenager specifically, maybe that extra motivation they need to earn whatever it is it may they're interested in. And Lauren, what would you say is like the earliest age that you would do some kind of token economy like we're talking about?
I think you could even do them at like 4. Like if it's shown to the child and you can practice it with that really low expectation at first, I think really young children can even understand these things. And you're not going to pick a bunch of behaviors like Lacey said. You're just going to pick what's the most important thing. Like maybe over the holidays, it's just having a pleasant time with your teenager, or maybe it's your elementary student getting ready by themselves in the morning, or whatever it is. Pick whatever that like biggest pain point is and use that. Keep in mind that token boards are not meant to be permanent, lifelong interventions. These are meant to increase the behavior and then fade them out. So it's not something you're going to have to use all the time forever. It's just to start to increase those behaviors and then eventually you'll fade them out.
Another point I want to make for when you're using a token economy, especially for the smaller children, when you are defining the behavior, it's just as important to go over with them if they're little. However, you want to make sure that your definition includes what they should be doing versus what they should not be doing. So instead of saying we're not going to whine, you're going to define the opposite of that essentially. So, talking with a big girl voice or something like that, so that it's very clear for them instead of the opposite, or, no tantrums or no whining can be kind of hard to define what that might look like. So doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, we always want to tell the kids what they should be doing versus what they shouldn't be doing. And it takes some creativity. And if you have questions, I mean, we've been doing this a lot of years. We've been very creative with telling kids what to do versus not to do. So email us. And our last strategy is practicing and implementing coping skills. Coping skills are going to look different for every age, but being able to practice and implement some coping strategies during the holidays can really pay off. So your kids' schedules are going to be a little wonky, and that might cause a little stress for them. So if we can practice ahead of time so that they know what kind of tools they have in their toolbox to pull out when they're feeling that way, then that's going to serve you guys better in the actual moments. So for younger children, you could be working on waiting, taking deep breaths, and asking for breaks. And then maybe for older children and even adults, you could work on journaling, asking for some time alone, or taking a walk. Again, this is something we want to start working on now so that when it comes time to implement it, they're able to. And it's not going to be perfect when they're in the moment, but at least they'll have that in the back of their mind and they've already practiced it and they already know what to do.
Great. Now it's time for our Grace and Grit segment, where we give advice in situations pertaining to topics from listeners. It's always anonymous, and if you want to write in, you can email us at graceandgritbcs@gmail.com. Hey, Grace and Grit, our days are pretty consistent during the school year, but not during the holiday breaks, and my kids just go wild. Their days are all over the place, and I have to battle them to even get dressed halfway through the day. I want them to have fun during their break, but it turns into me just trying to wrangle them all day, every day.
So, yeah, it's hard because like there's no rules on holiday breaks, right? So like maybe they do get to stay in their jammies longer or eat more snacks or watch more TV or whatever it is. I think probably the best thing to try is just to keep at least their morning routines a little bit on track like they are. So maybe they're still getting up, getting dressed, having breakfast, and that kind of just starts your day in the right direction. So it's not just like I get up and it's a free for all and I can do whatever I want. And then it's time to leave the house at 3 and I haven't gotten dressed, brushed my teeth, had a real meal. And I'm not saying these are bad things. Like I've been there too. When the kids are home all day every day, you get put into like a survival mode, and that's okay. But if you can kind of keep those morning routines on track as much as possible, you might start every day a little bit easier.
Another thing I would add too is, especially during holiday breaks, you're going to have those days where, like Lauren said, you end up staying in your pajamas all day or whatever happens. And that's totally normal and completely fine. But if you get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to get us back on track, like, what can I do? You can draw up a visual schedule for them and just, briefly draw, write whatever is going to look like the rest of your afternoon. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be implemented at the beginning of a day. You can simply just say, okay, guys, let's write up what the rest of our afternoon is going to look like. And you can put on that schedule, like, first we're going to get dressed. And rather if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's okay. And that can really help too, just for your kids to visualize, like, there's clearly no routine at this time, but that can give them a visual, like, okay, this is what's going to be happening next. You don't have to do just a visual schedule. Like, maybe you need to just pull out the first then board. First we're going to get dressed and then we can play again with their cars.
You can include them in the activities that are going to go on too. If there's no real planned event or activity, and it can just kind of be what they want it to be, but you need them to be a little more structured and focused, then maybe you ask them what few things they want to play and you throw them on the schedule and mix it in with getting dressed, dinner, and any chores they might have to do. Make sure the chores and the getting dressed are going to come before the fun stuff, though. Otherwise, it will be even more of a battle.
Mm-hmm. Or you can intersperse them, like get dressed, then do something fun, then do
back and forth.
I don't know, laundry, then another activity. But
hopefully that
thanks
helps.
for listening, guys.
If you have any other questions, please email us, graceandgritbcs@gmail.com.
If you need help or have additional questions, you can email us at graceandgritbcs@gmail.com. We also have free resources and products on our website. Visit us at graceandgritbcs.com. Thanks so much for listening to Parenting with Grace and Grit.